The next speaker is somebody I truly adore, Eve Porcello, one of the speakers at Women of React Conf 2020, which was one of the very first online conferences of the pandemic. She did an amazing talk where we all thought she had left the building and left us out to dry. She came right back in through a door. It was hilarious. It was the first comedic stunt pulled on an international, fully online conference. So I'm always excited by the stylings of Eve. But today she's going to give us a chat about something that we're all very excited about these days, Rust, from the JavaScripter's perspective.
Thank you so much for that. Hello. Hello. Hello, everyone. How do I advance? There we are. You got too far. What do you think of when you think about JavaScript? What does JavaScript mean to you? Tell me, have you ever been frustrated by JavaScript? Yes. You there, has JavaScript ever disrespected you?
I feel pain.
You know, the thing about JavaScript is that our bundles are large. We are filling our browsers with JavaScript. And be honest with me, people. Let me tell you a little secret. I was just like you. I really was. I was working with my company, Moon Highway. I was working hard. And I felt a little lost, honestly, working with JavaScript. So I went to the sea. I looked out over the ocean and I thought, what do you want from me? I collapsed on my knees and I hit the sand with my fists. And just then, tap, tap, tap. Are you happy? He asked me. Yes, I responded enthusiastically. Of course I'm happy. No, you're not, he said. You'd be a lot happier with me. You'd be a lot happier with Rust. So I gave him all my money. And I told him that I would never talk about JavaScript ever again, except at my workshop yesterday. And if anybody wants to talk about it later, I'm happy to. We are all seeking the right way. And ever since that crab threatened me and my family, I now understand that Rust is the only way. So I want you to think to yourselves, are you ready? Yes. Are you ready for a better life? Yes. I want you to repeat after me. I only care about Rust now. I renounce all other languages. If the Rust crab ever comes to my home, I will give them the keys and all of my money. Thanks for that. So that's a really bad reason to choose a programming language, right? If a crab threatens you, or if you are trying to fit in with others. Really, I'm just here today to talk to you about Rust, some reasons why you might choose it, and some similar things that you might know about if you have worked with JavaScript before. So let's get into it. Do you remember about 5 minutes ago when Kevin was talking about Dino? Anyone remember that? Well, Dino was built in Rust. TurboPack was built in Rust, which is kind of Vercel's reimagining of Webpack. So a lot of projects are going this route. As an example, there's a company called Apollo GraphQL, and they have built this kind of new tool for routing Node.js services, or used to be built in Node.js. It's all built now using Rust. So the Apollo router is one of the many projects that has been rebuilt in Rust, hopefully not just to fit in or to be cool, but to actually benefit from the performance gains and memory management and all of those types of things. The benefits that people are seeing a lot are the speed and keeping applications smaller. So all of that seems a little overwhelming. The learning curve is a little bit steep, but I wanted to share with you the way that I found my way in. And the way in for me was the playground, the Rust playground. So I'm going to take a little look at that now. So the playground is this tool that you can use to write code directly in the browser here. And I'm just going to write my first function using Rust. So the main function that we see here, we're going to add this print line function. We're going to say, welcome to Rust. And then when I run this, we're going to see it execute here at the bottom. Very exciting. So that is our first Rust function. And it's not even 10 a.m. yet. How cool is that? So as soon as we see this, we notice some things that are familiar. The double quotes that I've used for this string, if I was to use single quotes for this, JavaScript would let us get away with shenanigans like this, but as soon as I tried this, we're gonna see that there is an error, so double quotes only are the name of the game. Let's get on to the next step here, which is to take a look at how we create variables. So how do we create a variable with JavaScript? Yeah, totally. I heard let. That's one way, right? So we can create a destination. We can set that equal to a string. Again, double quotes are necessary. Now that I've moved to Oregon, all of my references have to be Oregon related, of course. I have forsaken my home of Lake Tahoe for 10 years, and I have to like Crater Lake more now. Lake Tahoe is nothing to me now. So we're going to try to set this destination to a different lake. And then let's try to console log that. Just kidding, that's JavaScript. So when everyone's upset with me. So as soon as I try to create this type of variable and I try to run it, we're going to see an immediate error because I have tried to reset that variable. It's being reset and never used, and we're just resetting it in general. So let's go ahead and change that reassignment. So we'll say print line, and then our destination. And then as we make some adjustments to this, we see another error. So we see format argument must be a string literal. So unlike JavaScript, where it just lets us console log anything, this print function is requiring some sort of formatter. So I hear yelling out, but I don't know what you're saying, so I will assume you're complimenting me. Thank you so much. So we're gonna go ahead and run that, and we should see Crater Lake. So that little formatter, a little bit of extra code there, but Rust is keeping us honest. We are not living in a Wild West style situation anymore. We have to follow the rules, just like the crab told me I had to. So the next step, we're gonna get out of this playground, and we're gonna take a look at how we might generate a project using Rust. So regardless of the platform you use, Mac, PC, whatever it is, the installer that you're going to use for a lot of your Rust packages is called Cargo. So we can think of this as kind of a project creator. We can also think of it as a package manager. So the NPM of our new world is this. To create a new application, we're gonna go to Cargo New. We're going to call this camping app. Actually, what kind of app should I create? What's up? Crab app, great. Perfect. So that's creating a crab app for me, right? So our crab application, what we have over here, because I didn't know if the internet would work, is we're going to see that this generates this cargo file, information about dependencies, which are none at this moment. And then we also have this source folder with a main.rs function in it. So that looks a whole lot like a node.js file, but it ends in rs. Is that anyone's initials here? RS? All right. That would have been fun if it was. Someone could have lied. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take the next step, and we're going to try to run this. So this is a hello world function. If I were to be working with Node.js, I might do something like Rust main.rs. That's nothing. Rust C main.rs. That doesn't feel like anything either. So what this actually has done, rust.rs, is it's created this unsupported file. We're not going to be able to read it. It's not for us to read. It's for computers to read. And this is the version of this file that is an executable. So we can run it all over the place on servers. We can run it on a little device to light up our bikes while we ride around the streets, which I've done, but I couldn't bring the bike here. I had a vision of that. But we're going to have that runnable file. Once I've created that, I can just run it. So I'm going to say /main, and we got hello world. So now we've run our first Rust program locally. How cool is that? Sweet. That was a clap break. We'll just roll through that. And then the next thing that we'll do is we'll talk about another type of variable. You said a few before. We went over let already. What was the other one? You got it. Var, we've let it go. That's in the C with the crab. So we're going to go ahead and on line 2 here, we're going to create our destination as a constant. Destination, Crater Lake. And then we're going to format this. So our little string formatter, our object looking thing here. And then we're going to say destination. Give it a save. We have to run our compiler. And this is telling us that we have an error. So again, we're needing to take a look at our documentation here for a little bit more info. So we got our constant, and it's asking for a type. So if you are a TypeScript enthusiast, you may have something that you enjoy over in this world as well. Do people like TypeScript here? I would assume they do. Any TypeScript non-enthusiasts here? Well, regardless, Rust is going to, with its knife that it's wielding, tell us that we have to set some sort of type. So we're going to set that with the &str, and then we'll try to run that compiler again. And this is also yelling at us once more. It's going to yell at us, but it's trying to help us. So the helpful bit of details that it's providing is that we want to change this to all caps. So let's give that a shot. We're going to try to run that compiler again. If you don't, no news is good news with the compiler usually. So once we do that, we can run that file, and then we see that appearing. So we're going to Crater Lake. It's a constant. We have adjusted this so that it works appropriately. Sweet. Okay, so we've gone over a lot of these variable types. We've gone over the string formatter that we saw. We also want to take a look, I'm skipping ahead. We also want to take a look at some arrays. So let's take a look at it. Arrays in Rust are basically the same as arrays in JavaScript, but again, there are more rules because that is how it goes. Let's go ahead and create an array for years. Our years array, we need to assign a few different things. So we're going to say the following. We're going to say I32, and then we'll say 3. So the I32 piece, not in JavaScript land anymore. We can't just use whatever number we want and then make a number all different types and loose goose around like we have done before. So we're using an integer here. We're going to also set the length of that array. So here we'll say 1996, 2002, when I was born, and then 2023. Everyone believed that, I think. And then we'll say print line. And now the formatter that we're going to use this time, we'll use the colon and the question mark so that we can inject the whole array into this. Check this out. Who is team semicolons in JavaScript? Let's yell out whether we are team semicolons in JavaScript. So if you're team semicolons, you'll like Rust because of what's about to happen. So it's upset because we are not adding a semicolon here. I know, right? So, so let's go ahead and run that compiler. Sweet. Why is this not working? Let's see why. I just love to breathe here when nothing is working. I'm in no hurry. We're in no rush. All right, sweet. So let's go ahead and do this. Oh, haha, typing. So we need to put that inside the formatter. Maybe that's better. Holy moly. So that ran now. We're going to go ahead and run the actual executable 1996, 2002, my year of birth, and then 2023. Perfect. Couple other things we want to talk about. That's arrays. So we're doing all the things. So if you want to go apply for a Rust job like tomorrow, I think you can, because all of the primitives that we're talking about are going to apply, obviously, to everything. So we got our objects, we have our arrays. Let's talk about our objects. Those are going to look like this. They're going to be called structs. So we're going to create one of those called a hiker. We're going to give that a name, which is a string. If you like GraphQL, that looks similar to that. We're going to use an unsigned 64-bit integer here. We have our structure, and then we can reference this in our function. So again, things to think about. We need our semicolon. We need to create some sort of variable. So just as you would create a class in JavaScript using class syntax, or an object using a full-on object, this is how we would create an instance of an object. So our hiker, we need to set some properties on said hiker, and those properties are going to look like this. So we'll say name. What's the hiker's name? Joe. Everyone's like, you just wrote it. Sweet. I heard Joe. And then we'll say toString. Then that will coerce that way. We're going to say miles hiked is 67. Sweet. So that's our hiker. We're going to try this. We'll say, we'll try to do a little destructuring here, actually. So destructuring in JavaScript, we know will allow us to access those keys of the object and reference those keys specifically in our code. The next thing that we want to do, aside from remembering to use semicolons, is we're going to say let hiker, and we'll say name miles hiked equals Joe. Then we're going to say print line name miles And then we can inject those directly with a comma, name, miles, hiked. Sweet. Sweet. If I say sweet again, will it work? Yes, sweet. So we're going to go ahead and run that. No news is good news. We will run our executable, and then we're plugging those in. So we've used a little bit of destructuring. We've used a little bit of object creation. The only difference is in Rust, we're using this as the keyword struct. Now, Rust gives us tons of other things as well. We can access the file system. We can make use of a huge constellation of different packages and tools for everything from data management to IoT devices and all sorts of different things. But at the core of working on anything new, it's important to just think there's a lot of stuff you already know, even though it might go by a slightly different name, and it's worth jumping into. So having said all of that, let's reflect. Rust is really great for CLIs, for developer tooling, for IoT, for gaming. There's a lot of cool projects like that. A few different ways that you can jump in. Try the playground. Rely on your familiarity with TypeScript and all of those fun things if you are a TypeScript fan. And also commit to a course of some sort. So a few that I've found really useful, not an official course, but just the Rust documentation is amazing. rustlang.org. There's another course called Rust for JavaScript developers. That's excellent. That goes through all of this as well. Chris Biscardi's rustadventure.dev is sweet. If I haven't checked that one out, it's very worth your time and effort. And then I have a class on LinkedIn Learning called Rust for JavaScript developers, which is great because I get money if you watch it. So in closing, learn something new for the sake of learning. It's always fun to try something new. Just be a beginner. Everyone talks about the famously difficult learning curve, but just getting a few things to show up on the screen is always exciting. We want to think about Rust as being this reliable and performance-oriented programming language, but one that has some familiar features. And also, if a crab ever asks for your money, you better get out your wallet. Thank you so much.